My name is Sarah Borges, and I am the English as a Second Language Curriculum Specialist for Milwaukee Public Schools. I'm very thankful for our time that we can share today. The topic of my presentation is Global Communities Empowering Families. I have recently entered my 4th year in administration. Before that, I was an English as a Second Language teacher for 10 years. And one program that has come about under the Office of Curriculum and Instruction is called Teaching Tolerance, and it's a K-12 curriculum around culturally responsive practices. And it goes along with this activity that I asked you to participate, the sharing of identity, goes along with the theory of doors and windows. The concept of the door is I know who I am and who my family is. And the concept of the window is that I allow others to see themselves in me. We may not practice the same traditions, for example, but we have respect. In any learning environment, it is critical for students to be empowered, to show who they are, and to also be invited to see themselves in their peers. Educators create these conditions, and a hallmark of high quality instruction is when the teacher acts as a guide because she has led her students to be self-directed learners. The purpose of my presentation is to identify programs out of my department emphasizing English as a second language. I will show connections to other areas in Milwaukee Public Schools. Certainly recognize the challenges. Thank you, Sally, for that opportunity. And then there'll be hopefully some time, if you're not rushing to lunch, to exchange some ideas. My department is called the Division of Bilingual Multicultural Education, and our mission is we support language learners, teachers, and the district to enhance the learning experience for every student. And we do this through programs, training, and advocacy. So that word support in our mission first signals programs. I will get into ESL and bilingual. However, very quickly, our language immersion program is offered in 4 programs at the kindergarten through 5th grade level in the languages of French, German, Spanish, and Italian. Students can continue their K-5 experience at a 6-12 school called Milwaukee School of Languages in those same languages. The World Languages program is common in the 9-12 at the 9-12 grade level. However, some schools have begun to offer an exposure to world languages at the primary grade level. The languages we offer in the district are American Sign Language, French, German, Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, Italian, Japanese, and Latin. And last, the final program out of my department is called the First Nations. We have 900 students identified as Native American or Indian, and there are 15 sites that provide a unique educational program that is around their cultural and language-based needs of the students and the families. Second is training. We provide on-site professional development, and we also integrate best practices for English learner students, who I will go into detail more in the work that we do for the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. So for example, my team and I will be able to team up with the literacy department so that English language arts teachers are integrating best practices when they have diverse students in their classrooms. And last, advocacy. One policy that I find myself falling back on is the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which guaranteed a free, appropriate public education for all students. In addition, we provide resources. We support aspiring teachers out of the university system. We also partner with internal and external stakeholders to provide resources. Correct placement into our programs is key. When families want to enter the district, they visit the Welcome Center where they are able to complete an enrollment application. If the family provides that another language is spoken in the home, that's when our a separate office out of the Division of Bilingual Multicultural Education, known as the LAU Compliance Office, will step in. LAO stands for the 1974 court case that found that the California school district violated the civil rights of a Chinese student, and thus it put in motion the need to provide supplemental language support in the United States. Where a family who is not a refugee or immigrant may take an hour to become enrolled in the district, receiving transportation or homeless or special education services. When the families work with our LAO compliance staff, the process takes about 2 hours, and I'll go into that a bit more. The important thing is that the Welcome Center and LAO compliance office work closely so that we can complete appropriate documentation and communicate in a timely manner to schools. And at the sites, we work closely with administrators, secretaries, school social workers, counselors, data processors in order to provide timely and responsive enrollment for families. You heard me speak about English learners, and I believe you would know them as commonly as refugees and immigrants, asylum seekers. Identification is key, so our Welcome Center definitely invites families in and helps provide them with the best service, but then our LAO compliance really is the office that works closely with resettlement agencies. I see Mary here. Hello, Mary from Lutheran Social Services. And the LAO compliance completes a home language survey where the family identifies that another language is spoken in the home. And then it is that time that a language screener is conducted so that we can get a level of language proficiency for these students. Special considerations must be made because we don't want to assume based on the parent marking another language. Sometimes there are no language needs, but more often than not, for special considerations, if a child came from another state or if a child is U.S. born, we need to do an academic check because we want to make sure that the student wasn't already tested. We need to avoid over-testing, and we also need to avoid misidentification of English learners. Milwaukee Public Schools uses 6 levels of English language proficiency. The screener that I mentioned will set a child at a specific level. A newcomer to the United States having no exposure to English might enter at a level 1, whereas a child who had instruction in a different country may come to us and test at a level 3. All in all, Milwaukee Public Schools welcome students at all ranges, all levels of English proficiency, and it is my responsibility to help schools address those the variances in need in terms of language. We align what we know about a student's English level of proficiency to research around second language acquisition. This is very important when it comes down to the work in the classroom. So we help our teachers understand the 5 stages, and very quickly I will go through each stage. This is for anyone learning a second language. This is what research says, that the first stage is pre-production or nonverbal. A student will just draw or point, and this may take approximately 0 to 6 months to get through this stage. Then it's early pre-production, where a student has limited comprehension. This stage lasts 6 months to 1 year. The third stage is speech emergence. A student provides simple sentences. This stage lasts 1 to 3 years. The fourth stage is intermediate fluency, where the student has excellent comprehension, and this can last 3 to 5 years. And the final stage is advanced fluency, where the student understands things like figurative language. And the most recent research says that it could take up to 10 years for a child to reach the advanced fluency level. Can you imagine the complexities that a teacher has to address if they have students who are monolingual or native English speakers, and then this range of students at second language acquisition process? So who am I speaking about? This is the most current data that I could pull for you. There are 76,773 students in Milwaukee Public Schools. Approximately 10% of that number are identified as English learner. There are an additional 4,000 English learners in the non-public or private schools that I support as well. These students represent over 50 different languages. Some of the top countries include Mexico, Puerto Rico, Thailand, Laos, Burma, Malaysia, the Middle Eastern countries, Somalia, Eritrea, Sudan, India, and Pakistan. The top languages outside of English include Spanish, Hmong, Burmese, Karen, Arabic, and Somali. There are 80 ESL teachers employed by the district, and those teachers are within 45 sites that have an English as a second language program. Despite that, we have English learners in 110 schools out of a total of 160 sites. So that's an additional 65 sites that do not have a program, but they may have a range of EL students, anywhere from 1 maybe to 16 at the most. English as a second language in Milwaukee Public Schools is an effective language instruction educational program that provides services to students whose primary or home language is other than English. And I have this repeated in this way because one question I get asked a lot, specifically by schools that already have an ESL program, but they're looking to get more ESL teachers, or by a school that does not have an ESL program that is looking to get a program or a teacher. They say, how many students do we need before we get an ESL teacher? And the response in the spirit of the law that I'm able to give is that the district has to have due diligence in informing parents of their options. It is highly encouraged that an EL student attend one of the 45 schools that offers a program, but that's how we're able to remain effective. We're able to align all the resources in the district, and with the limited number of staff out of my department, to channel the resources into those schools. That does not mean we neglect those other schools that do not have a program. There are 2 ESL teacher leaders in the district, and then myself, we support those non-program schools as well by providing professional development and other support that they need. ESL is a component of bilingual education. I have the 21 bilingual schools in the district listed by grade level bands. Fratney, Hayes, and Lincoln Center of the Arts provide a dual immersion program, which is one form of bilingual education in the district, where the student population is about 50% native English speakers and 50% Spanish speakers. So the intention is for the teacher to provide strategies and best practices so that both populations of students leave the school district bilingual, or as we are really pushing biliterate, where they're able to read and write in both Spanish and English. Riley started this year as a dual immersion Montessori, so they have grade levels K4 and K5. So they have 2 purposes: to provide the Montessori teaching as well as the dual immersion education. And every year they are adding on a new grade level until they reach a K8 school. So as mentioned, we have the dual immersion bilingual program, and we also offer developmental. So developmental would be in those non-bolded schools on that previous list. Several others in the developmental bilingual program. And the goal for either program is language development and academic development equals literacy. But with our bilingual education, we are promoting literacy in 2 languages, which is the concept of biliteracy. So it's not just being able to speak in 2 languages, it's having the academic proficiency to read and write in 2 languages. We also have standalone ESL programs, and these programs, there are 24. They service mainly students that do not speak Spanish. Some sites have over 20 languages represented, like Victory School. Quite amazing. The International Newcomer Center is in bold. It is a 6-8 program designed for students who recently arrived in the United States and have limited to no English. The newcomers are provided intensive supports around things like understanding how to follow the rules in the school building, how to read a schedule, how to find the cafeteria, and ask questions for help. However, they are still expected to meet grade level expectations, so the teachers have unique sheltered and instructional supports so that these students are able to produce a portfolio that would show that they are learning the same academic standards that their monolingual peers are learning, and the goal is for these students to exit the program after 1 year. ESL services continue for these newcomer students after they leave the International Newcomer Center. The goals of any school that enrolls English language learners are English language development and academic attainment. So supports throughout teaching and learning are provided, and accommodations are given on testing so that students' learning is leveraged. That's the goal of Law versus Nichols in the Civil Rights Act, is that English learners have the same access to the English content, grade level standards as their monolingual peers. We have models in our ESL sites, and that they include inclusion and strategic pull-out services. So the district will support schools in looking at their school improvement plan, the goals that the school has set for their EL population, and they look at the resources that are in their building to select the best program. The district really supports inclusion, which is much like special ed, where services are provided in the classroom. The goal is not to remove students from the learning community. However, sometimes newcomers benefit from those pull-out ESL services where the ESL teacher can focus on sometimes perhaps hygiene, basic issues that, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These students, specifically our newcomers, need extra support that they can receive from their ESL teacher. Development and operations. So out of the department where I work, bilingual multicultural education, there's a manager and 2 curriculum specialists, myself, and then I have a colleague who operates the bilingual program. She and I work closely because there's English learners in the bilingual program as well as the standalone ESL sites. And we support 4 teacher leaders to do their job, 2 for bilingual and 2 for ESL. There are 2 secretaries out of my department. One supports bilingual First Nations, world languages, immersion, and ESL. And the other secretary supports our 1 Lao compliance coordinator who enrolls students in the Welcome Center. And schools. Administrators work with a team of educators, including a school social worker, ESL teachers, classroom teachers, and together they really discuss the needs of their school and match what's available in their schools to the needs of the students. We work together, the district and the schools, and we also take in community input in order to develop programs and have smooth flowing operations. Challenges, there are many. I must mention time and money. Don't we all have that challenge? Never enough time to do more and more and more for our students. But we try. And then money. Money's always an issue. Training of personnel due to attrition. With MPS being the largest urban school district in the state of Wisconsin, there's a lot of new staff always coming in and out yearly, even ongoing annually. So it can be toilsome work to make sure that they understand the messages on compliance, services, and funding. It's critical that my team and I make sure that schools understand what they need to do to effectively support English learners. Special education, there's a huge misconception that the more services we get for students, the quicker they're going to learn English, and that is not the case. We see misidentification of English learner students as special ed, specifically in the area of speech and language. That says something. We need more and more education to staffs, to parents, so that they understand. Making a special education referral is burdening. It takes a lot of time, and we can avoid the referral process if we just better understand best practices, and if we just give our English learners more time. That second language acquisition process can take time, so we really need to, I really need to ensure that the masses are receiving this message. Another challenge is the cultural factors. My department is currently receiving emails and questions about how to address arranged marriages, high school boys who are smoking in the bathroom, Muslim students being uncomfortable at swim class. It's areas like this where my team and I need to research the facts and to make sure that we are responding with a plan that will help schools address the concerns that the students and families are bringing to the school. This is how we handle the challenges. One way that we found to really have a high impact is to work with the family engagement specialists at the district level, and it is these staff members who work with parent coordinators. There's a parent coordinator in every school building, and oftentimes these parent coordinators are from different racial and ethnic backgrounds than the EL population. So there's an opportunity to provide cultural relevance training as well as ways to engage diverse families. We also have outreach efforts. We have forged partnerships with the Rohingya Association in Milwaukee, and we also are working closely with the daycare run by a Somali-speaking woman. Out of the daycare, they support many MPS students and families, and just last year, one of our ESL teacher leaders was able to provide adult ESL classes during the summer at the Somali Center, and we had an ESL teacher who provided adult ESL classes at the Rohingya Association. So it's one of our goals to support those language groups of the less commonly spoken languages so that we can help elevate their status in the community. And it's not just us providing education to them by forging partnerships and showing these newer community groups that they can trust MPS and that we're here to help them. We want to learn from them. It's so critical that they see themselves in the school system, and it helps to be more comfortable with the parents attending conferences and getting involved at the school level. We're always looking for special funding sources to aid us in supplementing programs and initiatives outside of what the district is able to provide us. And the funding that we have available to help supplement and leverage supports for English learners out of my department are Title IIIA and bilingual bicultural. We use a large portion of these funds to provide professional development. Again, we have tremendous messages on compliance, and in order for us to follow federal regulations. So a large portion, again, is to provide that communication tool, and we also work with schools to help them align their school level funds to provide services to English learners. The connections to other offices include the customer service. Dr. Driver, the superintendent, is big on customer service. She created this initiative, and there are 3 levels of customer service training that is provided to everyone in the school district, schools, as well as the central office building staff. And my team is on the level 3 team. It is that team that we provide modal characteristics of the top 6 language groups. So we do not claim to be experts at this training, but we heard through surveys that staff just need to know who these groups are. they like us to disseminate the information rather than reading up about these groups, perhaps in the newspaper or on the internet. So we look at the top 6 language groups in the district and try to see, like cultural norms of these groups, and then we help the audience to apply this information to their context of work in the district. There are currently 15 sites that have a UN program, which we call United Nations Schools of International Learning. Most of the 15 sites also have an ESL program, so it's an excellent opportunity for my department to work with these schools to increase awareness of the students' cultural backgrounds and celebrate that global classroom community and school community that they have. There is a World Fair annually where families and schools come together to celebrate the work of the students around their country of study, the UN organs, and the global sustainability goals. And one more connection that I wanted to state, and that is the District Multicultural Multilingual Advisory Committee, known as DMAC. This is a group of various stakeholders, both internal and external, that meets monthly to provide information and guidance that supports bilingual education as well as multicultural learning for those less commonly spoken language groups. And the 2 bullet points are in bold because those are great ways that you and your team might have an interest in which to engage. I would like to end with a few final thoughts as I am approaching the time for open dialogue. But I would just like to reiterate that there are various programs in Milwaukee Public Schools that give focus to language and culture. The ESL program seeks to emphasize the assets of English learners, other students and families as well. So by working closely with other areas in the district, MPS provides opportunities for refugees and immigrants to receive an education that is empowering. Despite these challenges, my team and I are dedicated to supporting educators and principals in helping these students succeed. And I just want to end that it is extremely engaging and empowering to be among you like-minded advocates today.